Hello, and welcome to another episode of Telling Everybody Everything. It's Wednesday, July 16th. It is 2 weeks away from August. What's happening in August? Well, our listener's Stalker is being released from prison and into the community where she lives. And I don't want to wait for something bad to happen. And she's not sure what to do. And she has a victim liaison officer who is a man who she feels is not taking her safety concerns seriously. And so what do? Well, you ask a comedian on her podcast to reach out to listeners, and you actually get things done. You would be so surprised, or maybe not, if you are a longtime friend, listener, collaborator. Even during my tour, when we would answer some of the dilemmas in the second section, these sessions would become an education on women's health. Because a woman would say, hey, I keep getting UTIs all of a sudden. And I said, did you change anything? Did you change partners? No, I've been married for 11 years. What? We use condoms. Huh? Well, maybe you're allergic to the latex. Maybe he has a filthy penis or balls. Men are covered in bacteria. We know that. And some people would pitch in and say, you need to pee before sex. You need to pee after sex. You need to take these supplements. You need to address your gut microbiome. And then finally, we got to the most likely answer, which is perimenopause increases your chance of developing recurrent UTIs, which I don't even know why. I did not have that information. And this was all tongue-in-cheek. People were laughing. We were, of course, accusing the guy of cheating and suggesting he should just wash his dick in a sink when he sees one. But ultimately, we got to some really useful suggestions. So usefulness comes out of comedy, especially in women's spaces, because there are subjects that are unfortunately not covered anywhere else. And I'm sorry that we're using a comedy podcast to potentially save this woman's life, or at least her peace of mind, when her stalker is released in August. Here is this letter from one listener, Katherine. Trigger warning. As a victim of DV, I had a non-molestation order in place, which was breached on numerous occasions. However, the worst breach I have experienced was that of the no contact order. After years of going through court, it was finally decided that my daughter's father was to have no contact. But last year, on her birthday, he appeared behind us and began calling her name. We briefly stopped as I had no idea who this was, but when I realized, we carried on walking. He began shouting at her, "Do you know who I am? I'm your dad. I'm never going to stop trying to see you. I love you." She had not seen him since we fled in 2018. This scared my daughter deeply. She began asking if we were being followed by cars, stopping wanting to go out, and certainly will not return to the area where this particular incident happened. I reported the incident to police and I got a crime number. However, they basically just told me to contact my solicitor. The solicitor said that he could send him a letter. I thought this would be pointless as he's not adhering to the court order anyway. I feel this system is deeply flawed and there's no real protection for victims. I've tried to obtain counseling for my daughter, but I'm getting nowhere as she's just turned 10. I wanted to share our story with someone who I feel will actually understand what she went through. And I do understand. And I think that, and I hate to say men, but like these dads in particular who seem to genuinely feel truly victimized, disenfranchised by a system that has decided through their own choice to commit violence that it's in the interest of the child. And this rhetoric that, it's always the mom, that has changed. It is in the interest of the child to have both parents pay for them, have visitation with them, have contact with them. Like that is the court's view. It is very difficult to legally fuck someone in the UK. Even with a prenuptial agreement, You can go into it with a 28-day cooling off period. You can have independent legal advice. You can say, these are my assets, those are your assets. But in the event of a split, the court will decide on what keeps both people protected and fair and gives them adequate resources and gives adequate resources to the children. They're not going to completely fuck one parent usually if there is money to be split. In an event where you're trying to get money from someone who doesn't have it, I mean, like, that's more complicated. But they're not just going to remove a father from his child. There was obviously evidence of domestic violence. A non-molestation order was put in place. And there was a court order to stay away. And this guy turned up. That's scary. That's triggering. If you love your child, as you say you do, you don't need to be putting on a Spider-Man costume and scaling a fucking building. Me, 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 me. The best thing that you can do for your small child is to honor and support and care for her mother and contribute to the family in whatever way you see fit. I'm not saying there aren't mental women as well. There are. But to like weaponize this entitlement of like, I love you. The easiest thing in the world is to shout at a child in the street or text a child, I love you. I'll always be there for you. Okay, in what material way? Like, what sacrifices have you made to actually be uncomfortable so that I can have a better life? Oh, you text me and say, love you. That is breadcrumbing. We have so many dads out here breadcrumbing kids and traumatizing kids by popping up in public contrary to the directions in a no contact order. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. And no, I don't like it. Here's another. Katherine, I wanted to pop you an email after listening to the episode from the 25th of June, 2025. If you didn't listen to the details of this Stalker episode, that's when it was released. It's called like Stalker, about to be released. As a female police officer, I work daily with women who have been or are being stalked by men, and I see firsthand the suffering and fear induced by this damaging behavior. With this in mind, my heart goes out to the young teacher who's now once again in fear due to her stalker being released. I wanted to clarify something. I write this whilst keeping in mind that the police as a whole do all too often fail the public. And it's not my intention to defend the police for every action we take. However, once a case appears in court and we have gathered and presented the evidence, we have no control over either the sentencing, police release dates, nor any orders or conditions placed upon the offender. We are often called to account for lenient sentences and early release of the most vile offenders. It's all too common. We share these frustrations along with the public and victims. These sentences and orders are handed out by the courts, not the police. That is true. We shouldn't, vilify the police. But often when they're the first responders and they are the messenger that's like, just write to your solicitor, it really feels like, there's not more that you can do to protect me? Here is an offer of help to the audience member whose stalker is due to be released. Katherine, I didn't finish the podcast. I wanted to write you straight away to offer my services to your audience member whose stalker is due to being released. I originally trained as a crime analyst, and for the last 15 years, I have specialized in, quote, open source intelligence, which is essentially using the internet to investigate people, threats, etc. This has taken me down a path where I now help people understand their digital footprint, which is the trail you leave behind when you use the internet or social media, etc., and the risks associated with it. I have a range of clients, including business owners and an ultra high net worth individual who I helped protect digitally, along with their family. People think that as long as their social media profiles are set to private, they are not exposed. But unfortunately, this is not the case. All it takes is for a friend, a family member, or a colleague to post something about you on their public account, and all of a sudden your personal information is exposed. Governments and businesses also expose our personal data, often without our knowledge, and a huge issue for everyone now is data breaches. A data breach occurs when a company experiences a cyber attack and their data is stolen by a hacker. The breach can contain a ton of personal data, including names, email addresses, phone numbers, addresses, account details, passwords, etc. And then the hackers sell all of this onto the dark web. Once the data is on the dark web, anyone can see it. This is often how hackers get into our social media accounts and emails because they access our passwords through this breached data or even brute force if our passwords are not complex enough. I'm worried for your audience member that her stalker may use the internet to find out more about her. So I would like to offer her for free to look at her digital footprint to help her understand where she may be exposed and vulnerable so that we can minimize what he can find out about her. I can also provide some more general advice around online security. That is so nice of you. Of course, this is a woman called Rachel. She is the director at Inspired Acts. That is inspired-acts.com. And that is so kind. And I'll forward your number on to this young woman. But it kind of makes me sad that she should have to, we should all navigate our digital footprint carefully and take a look at that and have some awareness over what goes on. But I don't want this young woman to live her life differently than she would normally have. Like, she is young, she's beautiful, she wants to post pictures on social media just like everyone else. She wants to be on TikTok, presumably. Like, it's fun to be on there. And what? Now she has to hide because the system won't protect her from this psycho? But it's a very kind offer, so I will forward this along with a message from another woman, a female business owner, who offered to help with CCTV. But it sounds like other than that, like, the system, as we know, and is not surprising, is basically fucked. So why don't you get back in touch with me? See how you're feeling. We can do a little countdown. Maybe people have been reaching out to you directly since the show, local people who knew about your case. It was on the news and is in the news, and I will be keeping an eye on it. Thank you so much for your many letters. This week in the Ryan-Kootstras household, we have had guests from Canada. It is so nice to see Bobby with his friends. Male friendships are very important to a sportsman. Both of these guys really grew up together. And actually, Bobby grew up with this man's wife as well. In Canada, we have friends who have been married the entire time, like childhood sweethearts. And we took a cool 20 years off from one another, and I love that. But it is really wholesome to also meet the people that went to university with Bobby when I was out, doing whatever at Hooters and not participating in that friendship group. We had so much fun. They've got children. We got the slip and slide out. It was a blast. And excitingly, we were invited to see Just for One Day, which is at the Shaftesbury Theater now. It's not an ad, but I suppose it was an invitation from the people who kicked off the 40-year-old concert, Live Aid. Band Aid. Live Aid was actually 40 years ago. So Sir Bob Geldof was there, and all of these producers and collaborators. I won't go through it with you now, but of course, if you attended Live Aid 40 years ago, or you have since watched some of the performances, it was really amazing to hear the story and listen to the music of like how all of that came together. And it was presented in a more 2025 way, because I know in the 80s, and beyond, you would hear, like, heal Africa, feed Africa. And Africa is a very complex continent with 57 different countries, and there's poverty right down the street, and there are children who are being starved and abused in your own neighborhood. So, it is problematic whitewashing to talk about like first world, third world. Africa's a very rich continent, but they addressed all of that. They've got a young Gen Z person in the cast who was pulling up all of these 80s values and reframing them. And of course, Bob Geldof and everyone involved, they were just trying to do something good. They had seen this horrific BBC report about corruption in Ethiopia and gatekeeping of resources, and they just wanted to help. And I thought it was amazing. For those of you who don't know, just it was the first global pop music act. It was before social media, obviously. It was this global coming together where millions and millions and millions of people felt united watching one thing for one cause. And they donated loads of money, and then there were complexities getting the resources, where they needed to go. And a lot of it was very sad. We did zero in on some details of the famine, which was difficult for me, obviously, but important to hear. And we just had such a good night out. So if you are looking for something really uplifting and I would say fun, there are sad bits, but it was really fun. And we saw it at the Shaftesbury Theater in the West End, and it was awesome. And then we went to our favorite Mexican restaurant, La Bodega Negra. And each time Bobby and I get an opportunity for a date night, we think, where in London could we go? Like, what rooftop restaurants and what amazing places could we discover? And sometimes we get invited to new restaurants. There was a really cool members club somewhere called Bluebird in Chelsea that a lot of my friends were going to. I thought, I'd like to try that. But ultimately, we're not out enough. We're not cool enough to take a chance. And we just keep going to La Bodega Negra, and we don't regret it. So we went there, and that was great. And the next day, I had a harrowing financial meeting where I learned about all of the tax that I get to pay. And everybody says, and I feel like, it's great to have to pay lots of tax because that means you're earning lots of money. True, but some people pay more tax than others. And there are some ways of investing carefully and doing things in a way where you get to pay less tax. And I feel like there is no way that that's happening with me. I just can't believe how much tax I pay. Like, I just can't. I can't believe it. And I would love to pay it if I thought that it was going to, keep people safe from stalkers, fix the roads, maybe employ some nurses, teachers, pay them fairly, disability benefits. I would love to pitch in for those. But I just don't really know if that's happening at the minute. So I'm giving my money to whom for what is my worry. I'll tell you who it's definitely not going to, and that is Haringey Council. Nobody works there. I have finally had a resolution to an issue that has been plaguing me since October 2023, where Bobby and I got tenants at our property in Crouch End, the beautiful church conversion, the Gothic church where Violet and I spent many happy years. I bought that on the morning Brexit was announced. My offer was accepted in 2016. So instantly I lost about 25% on it because the pound went crazy. But I had never purchased a property before. I didn't really understand that I could renegotiate. I thought that would be rude, so I just left it. And I didn't care. I was like, what's 25%? I have the money. I want to live there. End of. I wanted to just have a beautiful place to live with my daughter. And I loved it. And we still own it, but we don't believe in being greedy landlords. So I think we have been advised by the management company before that we should charge maybe a little bit more to get a return on our investment, but we don't. And we also pay the water there, and we pay the council tax there, and we pay the Wi-Fi or, the TV, something else. And I just think that's fair. Presumably, I'm accruing value in the property. It's always smart to have property, isn't it? But no, apparently no, I'm not. The value is not going up because I paid a lot for it when I bought it. And the council tax bill swelled by 200%. And I got a letter in probably June of last year saying, Katherine, no, that's not how the council addresses me, but they're like, Ms. Ryan of the church, you have to pay 200% of your council tax every month now because it's a second home. And if it's not a second home, then you need to prove to us with a tenancy agreement that it's tenanted. And I wrote back, I said, hey, bro, it has been tenanted since October 2023. Here's the tenancy agreement. And we just pay the council tax because we want to just make it seamless for everyone and make sure that's getting paid, but we don't live there. I never got a reply. So I emailed to follow up 4 different times, never got a reply. I rang Haringey Council. I was put on hold for 40 minutes. Then I spoke to a woman who just put me back to the switchboard. And there's nothing more frustrating than that. And I just thought, does anyone work at Haringey Council? So I had no choice. I needed to solve this problem. So I took one of my very few days off. And yes, I'm quite pregnant. And yes, it was one of the hottest days of the year. And I went to the stunning Wood Green, which is about 15 degrees hotter than anywhere else on earth for some reason. And I had to go to the actual council building. And that is a bit triggering for me. Like, it's grim. I have been there before when times were different for me. And I have been to places either trying to get a council tax reduction one time because my daughter's father moved out, which, by my request, but they were like, you can't have a single person's discount until you pay, you prove where else he's paying. And I was like, I'm sure he's paying nowhere. And even if he was, I couldn't prove it to you. Like, what if he just disappeared and went to like Bolivia? Like, how am I supposed to prove that to you? I can prove to you that I live alone, but that's all. That was hell. Then I tried to get child support from another, series of hearings at a council office, and that was hell. They make you really feel like, especially when you're in a vulnerable position, there are individual people working there who are very good and well-intentioned, and they're not paid enough either. But again, the broken system means that you feel like a dog begging for scraps. It's not a good feeling to be there. And finally, I was there one time when someone had me investigated as a bad mother early in one of my breakups. So that was great as well. So I didn't want to go back. And there were vulnerable people there, and I felt very sad for them. And I was on the panel for a Channel 4 election special years ago. This is when the Tory government first came into power. When would that have been? Forgive me for not knowing, like 2020, 2018, I don't know. And it was tricky. It was a tricky show because conservatives won by a landslide and people were upset. But someone was on who was formerly of the DWP. And I said at that time, I had to deal with the DWP and I find it so broken. And this is the same umbrella that does disability benefits. They also do child maintenance. And I said, I was awarded eventually a certain amount, which I never got. They never followed through in like enforcing that I get it for my daughter. And they still owe me blah, 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 blah. Just, as a point, I brought it up. And the other host said, well, you're doing well. You don't need it now. And I said, no, I don't need it now. That's not the point. The point is I have a voice now, whereas other people who desperately need it still, and I needed it then, by the way, they aren't on the Channel 4 election special speaking publicly about how broken the system is because they don't have the voice that I have. So this is why I'm telling you that I felt like a dog begging for scraps. And even after like trying so hard to be awarded a scrap of child maintenance, I never got it. I'm just telling you how that goes. And like, they just couldn't see what I was talking about. So I didn't want to go back to that building, but I went and I saw some people there actually from my neighborhood who were in difficult predicaments with the council themselves. And I finally spoke to a woman who was like, oh yeah, we didn't receive any of your letters, obviously. And the reason that you've been paying this is because you're not allowed to pay your tenant's council tax unless it's an HMO. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Sorry. And she was great. This woman was so helpful and so nice to us. And she solved it. I mean, presumably solved it straight away. And then she goes, so what's going to happen now is like, we can't go after you for council tax because you don't live there. And I was like, well, apparently you can because I think I've paid you like 10 grand and you've sent the bailiffs to my house twice. So like you can, and you did go after me. And she said, yeah, but we weren't supposed to. So we'll have to issue you a refund that you can apply for. And then we're going to send your tenants a bill for council tax from October 2023 till now. And I was like, what? You're going to send my tenants a bill for 10 grand like today, dating back 2 years? She's like, yep. And you can pay it for them once you get your refund. Sometimes this causes problems, but tell them not to freak out. I was like, well, can't you just transfer my credit to their name? No, they're just going to get a big bill. Luckily, I'm in contact with the tenants. They trust me enough. I think they're not going to freak out when they receive that bill. But like the bureaucracy, what if English was my second or third or fourth language? Like navigating all of this, there's got to be a better way. So it's been, admin for the Ryan-Kootstras household. Have you guys seen Too Much on Netflix, starring Meg Stalker, written by Lena Dunham? I've spoken about the premiere. I loved it. Or it wasn't, it was a premiere. And a Q&A. I am obsessed with Lena Dunham. I am obsessed with her work. HBO released Girls at a very formative time in my life and probably yours. And if you have not yet seen Girls, it's not too late for you. You can catch up on Now TV. It is streaming there and probably elsewhere on Sky Atlantic. I loved it. And so, forgive my candid reaction when I saw footage from the premiere, which was embargoed until July 10th. So not a lot of what happened on the red carpet came out until just recently, like with the release of Too Much on Netflix. I hadn't seen her husband's interview on the red carpet. And it came into my feed as part of a montage that I was involved in where they were asking, if you could be any one of Lena's characters in Girls, what would you be? And it's a difficult question. I said Marnie. I would not like to be Marnie. I think Marnie was a very hated character, but girls could see themselves in just, the purity of her entitlement and innocence. I loved when she would always want to sing and perform in front of people. She was so clueless in her relationships. And she would say things like, what's your aesthetic for your wedding? She'd go, white American woman. Or she sang Kanye West's Stronger at this cocktail party, like as a special treat to everyone. And it was just so cringe. I would be and still am like guilty of such social infractions. I loved Marnie. Hannah, Lena Dunham's character Hannah, is a bit far from me. I was not as cool as the other one. Why do I want to call her Jessie? What's her name? It's been a long time. And Lena said she would be Shosh. I'd be a bit Shosh. I think we're all a bit of all of them. But her husband on the red carpet took my breath away because this is a really talented guy. He's a musician. Obviously, he has made Lena very happy. And for that, we have to just accept these men who date our friends and marry our friends. I don't know Lena Dunham personally, but I feel like we're best friends. And so whatever romantic partner she chooses, he makes her happy. She's included him in Too Much. He's very much a part of the soundtrack and a collaborator on a show that I have watched many times now and love very much. But Girls was so special to me. And they said to this man, which of Lena's characters on Girls would you be? And he said, I don't know. I have only seen 3 episodes. And I think my heart stopped for 20 seconds because I went, what? Okay. I had to walk myself back. I said, Katherine, these are artists. Maybe there's a reason why he hasn't watched that. Presumably, it didn't come into his periphery when it was released. He was doing different things. He was not a young woman. He was making music. He was doing God knows what. Living in Japan, we don't know. He was doing something. But surely then you meet Lena Dunham living in the UK and you fall in love with her and you say, wow, this is the most impressive and layered and unique and talented mind that I have ever come across. I'm going to delve into all of her work so that I can wholly appreciate every facet of her and get to intimately know all of her achievements. I'm sorry, if Bobby had created Girls, do you think I'd be like, well, I've only seen 3 episodes of it and we've been married 6 years. I would devour it. I just would. I've watched many of his football games on old grainy video that I was not present for at the time because I respect him and because I want to know about what excited him at every stage of his life that I wasn't around for. Maybe this husband didn't watch it because he's triggered by the sex scenes, or Lena doesn't want him watching it for some reason. She feels it's too exposing, or she doesn't like to watch herself. And she's like, well, let's just not put it on. I don't know. I don't know the reasons. I'm sure they have a valid one. But to hear that on the red carpet, I was like, you, sir, have robbed yourself of some of the genius of your wife. I'm sure you're experiencing it, but like, what? What? And if you, okay, I appreciate honesty, but if you really haven't seen it, then you say on the red carpet, yeah, my wife's the most talented person alive. If I could be any character on Girls, I would be the character she wrote for herself because I love my wife. And that is what he said. He said, I suppose I'd be her character. But like, sir, I know very little about you other than you've got excellent marriage game. And secondly, like, you just need to watch Girls. You just need to watch Girls. What are you doing? What is the reason? What is the reason? It's a Cardi B reference. Do you want to talk about the Epstein files? I do. Whatever the people, who are obsessed with the files, Epstein files, whatever they call themselves, it was a rough weekend for them because after years spent teasing the world's chronically online about the famous names populating a mythological client list of the world's most famous sex trafficker of underage girls, Jeffrey Epstein, Trump's Attorney General Pam, of course she's Pam, Bondi, essentially just put her arms up and said, nothing to see here, folks. She might have as well been wearing a hot dog costume and wrapped the news conference by saying, I think we're all trying to find the guy who did this, in a literal recreation of that meme from the Netflix sketch show, I Think You Should Leave. Naturally, the online hordes who've been obsessed with this ever since the A-list pimp apparently took his life under dubious circumstances in the 2019s, met his announcement in a super chill manner, and have since moved on. No. They are furious. A coalition of right-wing influencers, conspiracy theorists, and contrarian podcast bros who had previously united under Trump's promise to, quote, drain the swamp and expose the pedophiles are baying like coyotes at this attempt to sweep it under the rug because it's insulting to their intelligence. Trump took to his social media platforms trying to quell them, but searches for Trump Epstein skyrocketed. And in a further effort to silence the naysayers, the Justice Department released security cam footage of the night Epstein supposedly took his life. Slight problem. There was a minute before midnight missing on the tapes. Slightly enormous problem. Wired magazine conducted an analysis of the clip and found that the metadata had not been cleared, showing this clip had been edited from 2 separate sources via Adobe Premiere Pro, and it had been saved 4 different times. So this gets curiouser and curiouser. Of course, it calls to mind what Musk tweeted after his Trump's first big breakup. DJT is in the Epstein files. A lot of people were named as a lot of the world's elite roamed in his circles. But all of a sudden, this is making a lot of people connect the dots, and maybe the hundreds of photos of Trump and Epstein together might not be a coincidence. I have to tell you, this has been a topic of conversation in the Ryan-Kootstras household. Bobby is... It's not that Bobby likes Trump. I joke about Bobby being right-wing, blah, blah, blah. He's not... Basically, in today's day and age, if you are not incredibly left on all issues, then you're considered right-wing. Bobby has some very left-wing sensibilities, but he would consider a lot of the left to be performative with little action. I mean, we have a left-wing government in the UK right now, and look how left-wing it's not. And I think he essentially trusts no one, but he believed some of these platforms. Like if Donald Trump runs on, yeah, let's expose this. If that's one of the things that's making people vote for him, he goes, I will release the Epstein files. Like if that is a straight lie from his mouth, and then he goes back on that, well, Bobby finds that really disgusting. Like he doesn't like Trump. He considers himself to be a libertarian. He thinks that we should have access to all of this information. And he would have thought that at least a provocative, disruptive demagogue like Donald Trump would maybe reveal it, would maybe tell us if there are UFOs, would maybe be truthful about certain things. But obviously he's a massive liar, and he'll do whatever it does, like everyone who sells out in the government. It's a tale as old as time. The tea is that the FBI has dropped its investigation of Prince Andrew, and they're even flirting with commuting Ghislaine Maxwell's sentence. I think that will probably happen. How's Ghislaine Maxwell the only person in jail? The only woman involved is the only person who trafficked these young people to whom? To whom? There are also new rumors after my little dissection of the Bezos-Sanchez wedding last week that billionaire Jeff Bezos might be buying Condé Nast, Vogue's parent company, as a wedding gift for Lauren Sanchez, who was on the cover on her wedding day. Sources revealed that the billionaire has been ramping up for ownership, and the literal devil-wearing Prada and longest-running editrix in the magazine's 132-year history on a tour could be the one brokering this deal, which seemingly explained Sanchez's feature as cover star. Wintour has also got equity in the business, and she would stand to supposedly gain from such a substantial sale. Founded in 1892, Vogue is widely considered the paragon and canon of fashion in the modern era, an institution acting as both ultimate mirror and arbiter of the culture. So Bezos' impending deep-pocketed purchase has people nervous that Vogue could go the way of his other purchase, the previously vulnerable Washington Post. I mean, I would love to see an Amazon-owned Vogue with only clothing by designers available on Amazon. Like a 5-pack of tech mesh men's t-shirts. Actually, there are people getting really good dupes on Amazon. I have seen, and I have never personally purchased, but I have seen tons of influencers being like, look at this Lululemon dupe that I found on Amazon, and look at this on Amazon. Maybe Amazon wants to move into actual cool fashion, and it could be here before 1 p.m. Feels troublesome to me, feels very troublesome to me. But surely he would just hire a staff of good fashion people and keep putting successful side chicks on the cover. Legendary doll maker Mattel's latest model is not your grandma's Barbie unless your grandma is diabetic, because the latest Barbie is diabetes Barbie. She stays chic in a blue polka dot crop top, ruffled miniskirt, chunky heels, and insulin pump. Yes, it's the brand's first doll with type 1. This is presumably, Barbie, by the way, all Barbies have been on Ozempic since their release. Let's be serious. So now we're just trying to justify the Manjaro use of Barbie by being actually, she's had type 1 all along. Doll maker Mattel worked with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation to design the doll, which aims to represent roughly 300,000 kids and teens living with type 1 diabetes in the United States and 35,000 in the UK. In addition to the insulin pump that attaches to the new Barbie's waist, the chestnut-haired beauty has a continuous glucose monitor on her arm, a button held on by a strip of heart-shaped Barbie pink tape. Her cell phone displays an app that shows her glucose readings. She also has a light blue purse to hold her supplies and snacks to help her manage her blood sugar throughout the day, and that matches her shoes, of course. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, meaning the body mistakenly attacks its own organs and tissues. In this case, rogue antibodies go after cells in the pancreas that make insulin. And that is an essential hormone that helps the body turn food into energy. As the result, the body doesn't make enough of its own insulin, so people have to take insulin by injection or through a pump to survive. Where's lupus, Barbie? Mattel? Not as hot a disease? Type 1 diabetes on a child is fucking heartbreaking. There was very little understanding about it when I was a camp counselor and a musical theater coach in my town, but there was this adorable little girl, maybe the cutest little girl you've ever seen in your life. And she was 4, and I didn't understand what diabetes was, but I knew that she had it, and there were things she wasn't allowed to eat, and times she did have to eat, and times that her blood would be checked, and it seemed very serious. We knew that this could be life-threatening if it wasn't managed properly in the summer camp. And I just remember being like, what the fuck? So I love that Barbie's representative. I think, representation matters at every formative age. That is a lot of kids who have diabetes, but I just do think it's a way to sweep Barbie's Ozempic use under the rug, like I said. And that's fine. You don't have to make excuses, Barbs. I'll be on Ozempic as soon as this baby is delivered. People have been asking me my due date, and I have always held strong to you don't tell people that. But I don't know why this time it just feels rude. I hate the look on people's face when they will boldly say, they'll go, how far along are you? Or they'll say, when are you due? Or they'll say, what is your due date? Which is taking someone's rectal temperature, it's very intimate. So I try, in other pregnancies, I have been brave enough just to say, I don't tell people that. But this time, I just think, I don't know why I'm more vulnerable to being soft about how rude it is. I just don't like saying, I don't tell people. So instead I'll be like, oh, I'll give them a ballpark, or I'll give them a season. But it's such a weird question to me. But then I have met other pregnant women, and it is instinctive. I kind of want to be like, oh, when's the baby? That is just a normal question. Why can't I answer a normal question with a normal answer? I just can't. I just don't want to. And we're going around the houses actually about hospitals. And by going around the houses, I mean I am banned from having this baby in the house, which is fair. Bobby didn't like having fun in the house. The head is huge. And one of the hospitals I'm visiting is actually so cute. It is where Violet was born. But obviously the private room. Whereas when Violet was born, I was at first in a private delivery suite at 3 a.m. And then I was transferred swiftly to a horror show of a place with 6 women in it who would make noise all night and leave the lights on and have their other kids visiting. And I just hated it. I hated it. So, God bless the NHS for keeping everyone alive. But if that were my choice or having the baby at home, I would have the baby at home every single time. But I think it might be nice to end my journey delivering children, being delivered of new people in the same place that I started. And I have a photo where I'm holding baby Violet outside the wing of, where the delivery suite is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look who I was and look who I am now. Look where we are 16 years later. I would love to get that same photo, but just with everyone. That would be fun. I mean, I could rock up and do it anyway, but we might deliver there. I don't know. Or I might book in there. It's 4,000 pounds cheaper than the Portland, by the way. I might book in there and then just have the baby at home anyway, not tell anyone. Just tell Bobby that I'm going for a nap. You never know with me. I am a true wild card. Thank you very much for all of your emails regarding the stalker situation. There have also been dilemmas sent in. If you would like to email the podcast about anything, you can do so at tellingeverybodyeverything@gmail.com. Please look after each other. I'll see you soon.